So I've mentioned that it's really important to have the learners engaged and involved in their assessment process, which sounds great in theory, but how do you do that in practice? So you'll see this diagram on the screen now, which is a little cycle really, which unpacks how you engage the learners in their assessment process. So number one, as a lecturer, you need to work with the learners to bring them into the process. So this is about teaching about assessment for learning. So assessment is seen as a tool to inform learning decisions, not just for you as a lecturer, but also for the students taking responsibility for their own learning. So this is where you teach about how they evaluate and make judgments on work, their own work and other people's work, how they give and receive feedback, how you can teach them about critical thinking and those sorts of things related to the assessment task. So what does this look like? How do you make it visible? So as a lecturer, you have to describe what the learners are expected to do. So that's about making the learning visible and their assessment tasks within that visible, or the assessment skills, should I say, and knowledge that they need to complete their assessment tasks. So, and of course, you're going to share the GPOs with the students. So this assessment will link to these GPOs. This is what you're learning, and the same with the learning outcomes. This assessment task is about demonstrating that you can meet these learning outcomes. So that means then giving them some examples of assessments. What does an A, a B, a C and a fail look like in this particular course? And unpacking that for the students, so working with them to go through an A and say, like, here are the things that make this an A assessment task, or here, this is a fail because, you know, there are gross major errors in understanding of the concepts that they are supposed to know and understand. So yeah, and then once you have those exemplars, you can the students can compare their own work to their exemplars. I'll talk about how you deal with plagiarism and copying and those sorts of things later. And then of course the other thing you can do is you can share the marking schedule with the students, or the marking guide, to use the ARA terminology, and unpack it with them so that they understand what those criteria look like in practice against their exemplar. Or you can co-create a marking guide with the students once they have a good understanding. And then once you've done all that, step 3 is students can complete a draft assessment and present that learning to others and receive feedback from their peers. So what that looks like in a class, and the way I used to do it, is they'd bring along, I would beg, bribe, do anything to get them to bring along a draft assessment a week or 2 weeks before it was due. And I'd get them into groups of 3, we'd have our marking criteria, they would then mark each other's and give feedback. And there's some really great things about that, because normally assessments are very private and secretive, and they actually sometimes have no idea what it's supposed to look like. But having that opportunity to have a look at other people's work and realise that it's all in draft form and none of it's perfect, we all bring different things to it and we can all learn from each other, again goes back to the fact that it makes it less secretive, makes it visible, makes it collaborative and cooperative as opposed to competitive, and they can help each other.